One effective way of reducing the impact of stereotype threat is to reduce stress. Remember when you were introducing stereotype threat, I mentioned one piece of the cognitive load theory suggesting there's only 3 things that can fit in your mind at a time. And when you're teaching, you want some of them to be involved in understanding and some of them to be involved in learning, and sort of to maximize the pace of learning, you want all of them to be engaged in the task at hand. But we mentioned that a stereotype threat will cause stress to oust some of that and reduce students' ability to understand or learn or perform or whatever the other task at hand is. If we can reduce that stress, we can reduce the impact of stereotype threat. Right? Now, stereotype threat creates some stress, but there's other sources of stress. And the more we can reduce stress overall, the better. We can also have a reduction in this if we teach just a little bit slower. So there's a little bit of spare room, if you will, in the brain while the student is learning. And they'll end up developing as much learning that way. There's actually some studies that suggest it may be a good way of teaching overall. But first, let's sort of talk about some evidence that indeed this is achievable. There's a paper in 2007 by Walton and Cohen, and they studied a particular aspect of stress based on a sense of inclusion or exclusion, belonging or not. The way they did this is they asked students, first-year students in computer science, to list a certain number of friends. Some were asked to list 2 friends, which almost all of them could do. And some were asked to list 8 friends within their field, which early in a college career almost none of them could do. And what they found was that the white students, it didn't make much difference. Whether they felt like they had friends or they felt like they couldn't list as many friends as they were supposed to and therefore didn't have friends, they had a similar perception and similar ability to succeed. It didn't cause a stress for them. But for the black students, it did. Again, because they were operating in the stereotypically threatened environment, recognizing that they didn't have as many friends as they were told they should have caused a greatly heightened level of stress. So we can see here several standard deviations difference between those that felt like they had all the friends they should and those that didn't. This particular graph is about their perceived potential to succeed. This study measures several other aspects of their performance as well. So this was the sort of the scenario that shows that stress does indeed matter and matters more for stereotypically threatened students than for others. However, they also created an intervention. The intervention in this case was an intervention that targeted the stress directly. And what they did here in the intervened group, you can see there's a significant overlap. In the non-intervened group, we can see there is a almost significant difference. Although the trend is clear, the statistics are less than completely clear. We'll come back and talk some more about this graph in another video as well. But what they did here was they told the students that have a much reduced impact of stress, right? So the horizontal axis is sort of how much stress the environment was posing, and the vertical axis is a rough measure of how stressed or how confident they were that they could succeed. This down here is sort of the normal case. These are the students that they didn't really do anything in particular to change their perception. But the upper group that has a reduced level of stress overall, we're told sort of everyone struggles to make friends. Right? They were told you are a new college student when you're new at college. Having friends and feeling like you're part of where you are is a struggle everybody has. They didn't make it any easier for them to find friends. They didn't do anything to help them academically. All they did was say, you know, this feeling you're having shouldn't stress you out. It's normal. And that could reduce their overall level of stress and help them to succeed. The ways in which you can reduce stress in your classroom will vary. And it's lots of factors go into it, and some level of stress helps people work, right? We understand we all play this game. But it's worth recognizing that a more stressful environment will have a much more dramatic effect on minority students that are struggling under a stereotype threat than it will on the majority in your classroom. So to the degree you can, reducing stress is a way of reducing stereotype threats' impact.